In the quiet, fog-shrouded town of Ravensbrook, where the mist clung to the ancient trees like a ghostly shroud, there lived a young woman named Evelyn Hart. With her raven-black hair and piercing green eyes, she was both beautiful and enigmatic, much like the town itself. She had always been drawn to the dark and mysterious, a curiosity that led her to the edges of the forest where few dared to venture. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows, Evelyn found herself wandering deeper into the woods than ever before. The air grew colder, the silence thicker, until she felt a presence, a gaze so intense it sent shivers down her spine. Out of the darkness stepped a figure, tall and imposing, with pale skin that seemed to glow under the faint moonlight. His eyes, a deep crimson, locked onto hers, and in that moment, Evelyn knew she had crossed into a world she was never meant to see. His name was Adrian, a vampire who had walked the earth for centuries, cursed with immortality and the insatiable thirst for blood. But there was something about Evelyn that stirred a different kind of hunger in him, a longing he hadn't felt in ages. She was his temptation, his weakness, and from the moment he saw her, Adrian knew he could never let her go. Evelyn, though terrified, was inexplicably drawn to Adrian. His voice was a velvet whisper in the night, his touch cold yet electrifying. As the days turned into nights, and the nights into weeks, their bond deepened. Adrian became her protector, her shadow in the darkness, warding off any who dared threaten her. But with his protection came something more sinister, a possessiveness that bordered on obsession. Adrian's love for Evelyn was fierce, consuming, and his jealousy burned with a fire that could not be quenched. He watched her every move, his eyes darkening whenever another man so much as looked in her direction. His need to keep her safe grew more intense, to the point where he could no longer bear the thought of her being out of his sight. He began to isolate her, his fear of losing her driving him to the brink of madness. Despite the terror that sometimes crept into Evelyn's heart, she found herself falling deeper in love with Adrian. His passion was intoxicating, his protectiveness both a comfort and a cage. She knew he would do anything to keep her safe, even if it meant losing himself in the process. But as their love grew, so did the dangers that surrounded them. Other vampires had sensed the bond between Adrian and Evelyn, and they were not pleased. They saw her as a threat, a weakness in Adrian's armor that could be exploited, and so they began to hunt her, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the moment to strike. One fateful night, as a storm raged outside, Evelyn found herself alone in the manor Adrian had taken her to, a place filled with the echoes of forgotten memories and whispers of lost souls. The wind howled, lightning flashed, and suddenly, she was surrounded. A group of vampires, their eyes glowing with malevolent intent, had come to claim her, but Adrian was not far behind. He burst through the doors, a force of nature, his eyes blazing with fury. The ensuing battle was a blur of fangs and claws, of blood and fire. Adrian fought with a ferocity that was both terrifying and awe-inspiring, driven by his all-consuming need to protect Evelyn. In the end, the other vampires lay defeated, their bodies reduced to ash. But the victory came at a cost. Adrian, weakened and wounded, collapsed at Evelyn's feet. She knelt beside him, her heart breaking as she held him close, feeling the coldness of his skin, the fragility of his once-immortal form. As he gazed up at her, his eyes softened, and for the first time, she saw the man behind the monster, a man who had lived too long, loved too deeply, and lost too much. With his last breath, he whispered her name, and Evelyn, tears streaming down her face, pressed her lips to his, sealing their fate with a kiss. But fate had one final twist. As dawn broke and the first rays of sunlight filtered through the cracked windows, Adrian's body began to heal. The curse that had bound him for centuries had been broken by a love that transcended time and death. He was no longer a vampire, but a man, mortal, vulnerable, and free. Together, Evelyn and Adrian left the shadows of Ravensbrook behind, their love stronger than ever. They knew the road ahead would not be easy, but as long as they had each other, they could face whatever darkness lay in wait. And so, hand in hand, they walked into the light, leaving the secrets of the past behind, and embracing the promise of a future filled with love, passion, and the warmth of the sun.